Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm going to show you today how to replace a clutch in a Farmall Cub. These techniques do only apply to a Farmall Cub or a Cub lowboy. In addition to replacing the clutch, I'll also show you how to do a clutch adjustment and talk about maybe if your tractor would only need an adjustment instead of the whole entire clutch being replaced. We'll talk about those troubleshooting later on. But first we're going to start disassembling the tractor. We're going to take the hood off, but first we need to remove the gas line. I've already got mine removed so you can see it come off. Also, you need to remove the ground wire of the ground cable of your battery just to prevent any accidental arcing while you're working on it. We want to take the air breather and the radiator cap here off. I have my bolts off so the hood will lift right off. My sister Hannah is going to come in and assist me with that. There we go. I'm ready to mark the wiring harness here so that we can take that part off next. I've got wires here that come to the generator and I'm going to mark those. I'm just marking the wire here and then using the corresponding number to mark where it goes on the tractor. This just will make it really easy so that we get every wire in the right spot when we go to put the tractor back together. You want to do this with every wire that's on your generator, the coil down here and the voltage regulator, everywhere that the wiring harness goes. I just removed the starter down here. We're trying to remove everything that would be in the way when we split this tractor in half. You can also see that I have the clamp off of my exhaust here, so that can drop right down. Then we have the choke linkages and the starter linkages. Those will just pull right back. I'll get this main throttle one in just a minute here. You're just looking for everything that's connected here. The steering wheel is included, so I'll just pull that out. And that will come up. There we go. This will come out like so. You can continue doing this sort of thing on your tractor, just getting everything pulled away. Next, we're going to hook up the cherry picker so that we're ready to pull this apart. There. My mom, Jennifer, is going to step in and help me at this step because you would want to have a friend help you as well. We're just going to pull this apart. You can see I already have the cherry picker hooked up here, and it will start to go. The steering wheel's got to get beyond that. I'm going to come over here and pull. I want to draw your attention to how we have this cherry picker hooked up. I got a load strap around here to cradle the engine so that it's very secure. Also, everything in the engine here is still intact as far as fluids go. We didn't drain anything out of the radiator. We just left that how it is and just split the tractor right here so that we can get to the clutch. You will need a cherry picker to do this repair, and if you don't have one, there's probably a rental facility near you where you could rent one and save yourself the expense of purchasing a cherry picker if you're only going to do a repair like this in your shop just this one time. Notice on the rear of my tractor how I have the jack stands underneath here to secure this. Also, my wheels are secure with blocks underneath there. Take the time when you're doing this split to make sure that it's very safe. You notice when we split ours, nothing fell, nothing slipped. It went smooth because we took the time to think through how to do this safely. You'll want to do the same on your tractor. Now let's take some attention to the clutch. While inspecting the clutch here, I could see, and you can see as well, that this one finger is higher than the others that are lower. So therefore, when the throwout bearing, which is still in the rear of the tractor, but when the throwout bearing was making the connection, it was only hitting on one finger instead of the others. What that feels like on the pedal was a pulsation. I would put the pedal in, there would be a lot of pedal, and then it would pulse or shake. That's a sign that your clutch is needing to be replaced. Your clutch might just need an adjustment if there's too much pedal altogether. Or you could also know that there's a problem in here with the fingers, and that this clutch did not happen that way, but sometimes the end of the finger would be broken off completely. So then when you push your foot onto the clutch, it would just go. There'd be no contact. You could feel that nothing was happening when you push onto the clutch. Additionally, before, I could tell the clutch was wrong there. Also, when you tried to put it in gear, the tractor wouldn't go into gear. But also there's an inspection door in the bell housing of the tractor. Here's what the door looks like underneath the tractor. And we pulled that down and we could see the physical damage that was there existing onto the throwout bearing. So if your tractor has any of those symptoms, that would be a sign that your clutch definitely needs to be replaced. I'm ready to remove the bolts here that hold the clutch on. When you pull these bolts out, the fingers will release. You'll see that as I'm working on there because there's pressure, and as we're releasing the pressure, it comes apart. So be very careful when you're doing this to keep your fingers out of the way. Be very mindful of where you're touching this clutch plate on there. So. Okay, get ready to touch it here. Should come off. Yeah, there's a little loose right here. That's going to be it, so hold it. Ready? There we go. Just want to point out to you the wear that's on this plate. You can see how it's very worn down here. Also here, I hope you can see the grooves. I can definitely feel them with my finger and see how worn this pressure plate is. And additionally, on the flywheel here, I can feel that as well. There's a huge groove right in there. So we are going to take this flywheel off and take it to a machine shop to have it resurfaced. So I have these bolts loose here so they can come right out. While you're in the tractor and you're looking at this flywheel, take a look at that starter ring gear around here. Make sure that none of the teeth are worn. If your tractor has trouble starting, that could be an issue. Why? So it's in your ring gear there. And then this flywheel will come off. And try to pry it off there. There we go. While we're this far into the tractor, we're going to go ahead and replace this rear main seal. I can see that it's leaking, and while we've got this much work done, it's the perfect time to go ahead and replace that, even though it's not technically part of replacing the clutch. It's just wise to do. So we'll take this plate off and begin replacing that. We're ready to get to the throwout bearing inside of here. So there is a pivot pin in the back of your bell housing here. So there's a cotter pin on each side. I already removed the cotter pin from this side. So then we're ready to just pull this pivot pin right out. It doesn't matter which side you pull it from, just as long as it's one side or the other, it comes out. So once your shaft here is out, you can replace it if it's worn at all. It's a part you can get from Steiner. And then you'll see that this is loose in here. The carrier part of the throwout bearing is loose. I do have one out of the tractor here so that you can easily see what's going on. There is a pin back here that connects that, so you'll need to remove the pin. And then once this whole assembly comes out, you can remove this bolt to get to the throwout bearing. Now the throwout bearing that's inside my tractor is extremely worn, very, very worn. You'll want to analyze yours and see if yours is worn there as well. This one that's out of the tractor is a good used throwout bearing, but we definitely need to replace the one that's in inside our tractor because it's so worn. Also notice on the carrier here, this hole up here is no longer round, it's kind of oblong, so we'll replace the carrier as well. These are all replacement parts that you can get from Steiner so that you can take all of the looseness out of your clutch so that there's not as much play inside your clutch. This is my clutch alignment tool. You'll need one of these to do the repair. You can purchase it individually or you can purchase it with the kit. It will come in the kit if you decide to purchase your parts that way. So first you want to make sure that the tool does go in here and fit properly and it lines up to that pilot bearing. If it doesn't, you might have mushroomed in the edge or mushroomed out the edge when you were inserting it. So just make sure that you have a really good connection there. Next we'll put the disc on here. Now the disc will fit on there in both directions. It'll go with the hub towards the rear, or it will fit with the hub towards the flywheel, but it is directional and you want to make sure that your hub goes out towards the rear of the tractor. And then we'll put your alignment tool in there and it'll line that up for you. Now we're ready to put the pressure plate on. The pressure plate, you notice there's these holes here that line up, so that's going to go on there. You keep your alignment tool in there at this point. And then you just insert all of these bolts through there. These bolts do have a shoulder on them and there's also a washer in there as well. I'm tightening up my last bolt on here. As you tighten yours up, the flywheel will go around, so you want to just hold the flywheel back. There you go. And then, I guess that's tight. And then I also went back and tightened it really good with a wrench and just double checked all of them. Do not use an impact on this part or you'll break it off and then you have a serious problem on your hands. So just make sure that they're tightened by hand. As you insert these bolts, you'll notice that the fingers on your pressure plate do close in, and that's what it's supposed to do. Just make sure that, you know, all your fingers are out of the way of these fingers. Once the pressure plate is all on there, you want to pull your alignment tool out. Make sure that it pulls out easily. If there's a catch or anything, you want to go back and fix that problem so that your alignment tool pulls out easily, and that will allow us to insert the shaft in there correctly. You want to make sure that all of your fingers are adjusted to the same level. It should come pre-adjusted so that it's all set for you, but sometimes it might not be. So you can just measure right here. The factory specification for this is 7/8 of an inch from this plate to the tip of the finger. All of mine are at the 7/8 of an inch. You want to make sure that one isn't higher or lower than the other. If you do have an issue where all of your fingers aren't at the same level, you can loosen this nut here and move the Allen wrench either one way or another to make sure that all of your fingers are at the same level there. My throwout bearing is inserted into my yoke. When I did so, I did have a little bit of trouble with these holes. They weren't quite big enough due to the paint. So I just used a file, like I'll use up here, just to round those off a little bit better, just to get the paint off of there so it's a nice fit inside of there. You want to make sure that your throwout bearing moves freely. Make sure that it's not sloppy. You want to have some balance there so that it moves freely but it's not sloppy. And then additionally, make sure that you have your throwout bearing in here in the correct way. Notice that the zerk is down towards the bottom. You don't want to have, it will go in the other way, and you don't want to have your zerk up here. That'd make it very difficult to grease. So get your throwout bearing in there in the correct way and insert it into the yoke. I do want to show you the old throwout bearing, so just so that you can see how warped that was and why we're replacing that. Yours might be this warped, it might not be as warped, but it's bad, so you want to replace your throwout bearing. Also within the yoke, there was a lot of sloppiness and movement down here. See how much that moves? That's not good, so that's why we're replacing that yoke altogether. So we're ready to insert the assembly in here. Also make sure that you inspect your shaft here. Make sure that it's not bent and that none of the teeth are broken out. You can also, if you are having difficulties with your PTO, this would be the time to replace that shaft, as it might be broken off on the other end. That might be why you're having problems with your PTO engaging. So inspect this shaft. If you need a new one, you can buy a replacement part from Steiner and replace that altogether. Now my other yoke is down here, and when I put this into the tractor, there's going to be a pin that attaches to that yoke here. The pin will just slide through with the yoke, and then there's a cotter pin that holds it there. Okay? I just wanted to show you that outside the tractor, so then you're going to have a little trouble seeing it. So now we're ready to put the throwout bearing on here. It does attach on both ends up here. You can purchase a new pin so that it slides through there easily. If we get it straight on, it'll go through this hole. Again, you can do this from either side, doesn't matter, just whatever's the easiest for you, the left or the right. Okay. Line up here. Okay. Okay. There we go, we're through. And then we just got to get this end through. I'm going to line it up here. There we go. And through, okay? So now this is on there. You can see it moves a little bit, but it shouldn't, because we have to insert this bottom pin through the yoke here. Here's my pin, and I'm going to insert it through there. If it's easier for you, you can use your hands down through this inspection door as well, and get that pin inserted through there all the way. We are ready to put the two halves of the tractor together. Now there's lots of things to pay attention to. The first is that we did put the tractor in gear, so it's not going to move. That's a safety thing. We also have the wheels are still blocked. Now, when we slide the two parts together, we have to make sure that those splines are lining up. The spline is lining up to the clutch on this half of the tractor. So in order to do that, I do have the hand crank on that end of the tractor. We'll move that a little bit so that those splines line up and make their proper connection and fit there. And then we're also going to move the tractor in. You can move the steering wheel up and down. Another thing I did do is I moved this column by taking those bolts out. We figured that was a lot easier to take those bolts out than to take the steering wheel off the tractor. So with that done, we are ready to start bringing the tractor together and lining these bolts up. Notice I have the bolts ready here so that they can slide in. Jennifer's going to get on that end and push it towards me. At this point, we're driving the dowels into the bell housing here. As we go, we want to crank the tractor with the tractor in neutral now. We're making sure that nothing is binding and it's working properly. Do that as you go. There's no sense in rushing this. Make sure that you move both halves together at the same time. She's wrenching at the same speed I am so that it comes together. You don't want to, work on one side and then go do the other side. Okay. I'm pretty well close in. Okay, we'll just check that binding one more time and then we'll be on to the adjustment. Looks good there. Okay, we're all set. We're underneath the tractor here talking about the adjustment. You want to look between your throwout bearing and your fingers and set it to about 1/8 of an inch of gap there. You set that back here in this yoke. You can take that pin out and screw the yoke either forward or back, whatever way it needs to be, so that there's a proper adjustment between the throwout bearing and the fingers up here. Just tightening up this bolt here on the wiring harness, you'll see everything else is connected together as well. We got the cherry picker out of the way. They're on 4 wheels, all connected together, and it's stable. You also see that we connected the hydraulic lines. I've got my muffler and the manifold reattached. My starter's back in the drive, as well as the lever for the starter. You'll want to redo everything that you took apart to split the tractor. You want to connect it all back together again. Also on this end of the tractor, you can see that I have the steering all back in. We connected it up here so that the steering is intact. Now we're ready to put the hood on the tractor. Jennifer's going to help me. You want some help when you do this as well. Whoops. Okay. You want to lift up high enough so that you don't break anything off. And we're going over top of the air breather. We're good on my end there. We're going over top of the air breather and the radiator. If your Cub has upward exhaust, then you'll certainly need to go over top of the exhaust as well. Mine has downward, so I don't need to worry about that. Now the hood's on, replace your caps, and then you're all set. Now I'm going to drive the tractor forward and back to check out the clutch job. The clutch checks out good. It's a good repair. I hope that this video was helpful to you in repairing the clutch on your Cub.